So to our hearts, it really was the central place of the company. And we were doing that, and then Ron Wayne sold out his 10% of Apple to us for a few $100 because he realized if we ever got into financial trouble, Steve Jobs had no money, and I had no money, and they would come to him and get his gold nuggets between his mattresses. So, he was into all those real arch-conservative things. So, but we were so proud of ourselves. I was still working at Hewlett Packard for my lifetime job, and we're doing this on the side and getting a little bit of notoriety. It was so much fun. But within 3 months, I developed the Apple II, and it was just an obvious revolution. I wasn't going to give it away without copyright notices at the club. We knew we could sell 1,000 of them. It had the first time ever anyone would ever expect a low-cost computer to have color, or to have graphics for games that could be animated and moved around, or pixels for pictures. It was just so many firsts about the Apple II. It even had paddles and sound for games built in. And Steve and I were still in our young 20s, and we had no money at all. But here's a computer that we could build 1,000 of if we had $250,000. We pitched it to companies, we pitched it to VCs, and we didn't sound right to them. We were just too naive and all. But we finally found an angel, Mike Markla, and he agreed to put up the $250,000 as long as I left Hewlett Packard. And I was stunned, and I thought, and I decided, you know what, I'm always going to be sort of the person I am, and not be swayed by money, and I said, no, I'm going to be a Hewlett Packard engineer for life. I've designed 2 computers while working at Hewlett Packard, and all these other cassette tape interfaces, and all these other things. I wrote a whole basic language with no training, and the best things you ever do in life, I think, are when you don't have resources and you're forced to find ways to do it for less, and when you've never done it before, and it's your first time, and you're going to find the excellent way to do it today, rather than the old established ways that other people do it by. But anyway, I had to leave Hewlett Packard, and I said, no, I'll design computers for my own fun at night, on my own time. And finally, a friend convinced me we could start this company, and it was okay to stay an engineer. I didn't have to run the company. And then I felt good, so we started Apple that day. I left Hewlett Packard and started Apple. In the education sphere, we got going. I had this huge interest in young children and their development. It was, to me, I didn't have my own kids yet, but it would be like a computer growing up and learning and being trained and software being written. And Mike Markla had a young 9-year-old daughter, and so we wrote a program called Color Math, just a flashcard program that would go on a computer screen and demonstrate to schools. We shipped it with every Apple II on cassette tape. It would demonstrate to schools that you can actually do school education type work with a computer. At one point, our computer was starting out and selling okay, and we were getting all the notoriety. We were probably the cheapest to make, but the most expensive to sell because we wanted to fund our company well. But we needed a floppy disk for speed. And I went into, we were going to go, Apple Computer was going to be allowed to show at a show in Las Vegas. I had never been to Las Vegas. What motivates people? I want to see the lights of Las Vegas. So I asked, 3 marketing guys were going to go, and I said, well, if we have a floppy disk, could we show it in Las Vegas? And Mike Markla said, sure. So now I had a key. If I got a floppy disk designed in 2 weeks, this is normally like a year-long project, in 2 weeks, I'll get to go to the show because they'll need me to show the floppy disk. Boy, did that motivate me to work day and night, every day, Christmas vacation, New Year's Day. For 2 weeks with a high schooler, Randy Wigginton, one of our young programmers, came in, helped me out, and we got the floppy disk done. I got to see Las Vegas, and and it got a lot of notoriety. At the same time, we were trying to improve our own checkbook program, and these guys out east wrote a little kind of on the screen, multiple calculator checkbook type thing, but they realized it has a lot of other uses. It's called VisiCalc. A small businessman could set up a bunch of income and outgoing categories, month by month by month, change a few numbers here and there, and plan his whole business, and do so many changes and trials of this and that. What if I change that number? So much in half a day, they realized it would take them 10 years to do that by paper and pencil. So all of a sudden, we had the first killer app, and there was a whole market, a huge market for these personal computers that was going to take it into the big time and even make Hewlett Packard sorry. During we had one guy that taught us that the computer should be as easy to use for somebody who knows nothing as for the person who knows everything, and that was Jeff Raskin. And he taught Steve and I, Jobs and I, make it as simple as you can, put in a lot of effort, a lot of work, and somebody understands it. Your manual is shorter, you've done a better job for the world. And he took us into Xerox PARC Center, and we saw the GUI approach to computers, today's approach sort of with windows, with mouses, with menus. It had been written about as early as 1963, and by this time it was 1980, about 1980. We went in there and we knew that this was the future. And once you went through that door and you had several windows could come up on one computer, it was like you had several computers in your hand at once. It was so powerful. It was once you went through that door, you'd never come back. It was a one-way door. So we went off and we started this project. We hired a lot of humanists. We hired a lot of educators to think out, to plan and study and run experiments on people who knew nothing. What size should the menus be? What should the wording be? What should the icons be? How do you instruct people to this object-oriented approach in software, to drawing your own pictures? And we came up with such a great user interface that way, and it was really out of respect to these people. But the first computer we built was the Lisa, and it cost $10,000, and we couldn't sell very many. The reason it cost $10,000, it had a megabyte of RAM, and that cost $5,000. It was the right amount of RAM, but it was too expensive. So we had this other project going on, and Steve Jobs sort of took it over from Jeff Raskin, and it was the Macintosh. And all my favorite people somehow were on this project. The ones who weren't normal engineers, the ones who didn't have college degrees, who weren't kind of on the insides of all the other groups inside of Apple by now. It was just the guys who were the greatest programmers, the greatest hardware designers, and loved this world of fun, and we all got together. My favorite people were there. So I was on the Macintosh group, and then I had a plane crash. And 5 weeks later, when I came out of amnesia, I decided this is the last chance in my life to get a college degree. And it was pretty much, I like to go inside myself, and I'm sorry, the world doesn't tell me how to be. And you know what? I would have gotten a college degree if Apple had never happened. So the fact that Apple had happened, it was a huge success, we were all very wealthy, big deal. I'm going to go back and get my college degree. I went under a fake name and pretty much got away with it, and then I got my diploma in the fake name too, from Berkeley. California school. So the fake name is Rocky Raccoon Clark. And it was a great year, led me into putting on some big music concerts, and don't be surprised if you hear of another one soon. Anyway, eventually I had kids. Let's skip a little bit of time. Eventually I had kids, and philanthropy turned from museums to schools. And back then it was popular to give computer labs to schools if you were a technologist that had made it big. And I thought, you know what? Giving labs is kind of easy, but you should really give your own time. And your own time is the most valuable thing you have. And I decided I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach my whole life. And I had young kids of my own by now in the schools, so I started trying myself out as a computer teacher, voluntary computer classes. And it got to within 1 year, I got up to where I had advanced classes of kids, and I had fifth graders, and these classes would be 200 hours a year. And I was also teaching teachers. And looking back, I wish I had taught teachers more, because the teachers were kind of the least technical of all the people, much less technical than the kids. But the kids' performance in a school goes up to the level the teachers expect. So if the teachers don't have very good experience and don't know what the kid is capable of with a certain program, they get wowed by the simple little things, and the kids drop back and do simple jobs. When they were with me, they turned out the greatest homework. First day of class, I thought, what do you teach? I don't know. I'm going to find out. Well, binary, zeros and ones are as easy as math for a fifth grader, as easy as any math you've ever learned. Started teaching some zeros and ones, magic computer numbers. And I taught them to unscrew the computers with a screwdriver and take out hard disks and put hard disks in and start to feel the machine as a part of themselves. And eventually I developed my own curriculum, and I just, I thought, what has value to all these kids? Not becoming a computer designer like I am, not becoming a big technologist, getting your homework done well. Make your homework look good. Your teacher will be impressed. Your teacher will praise you. You'll feel better about yourself, all that stuff. So the number one goal of my class was how to make your homework look good. And that involves all sorts of design and layout and styling rules. And but in order to do that, you've got to be able to maintain your own computer and keep it going. I bought computers for each of the kids, a laptop, so that the computer could be with them at school, at home, at their grandparents, and on the park bench. It was just like the computer will become a part of you. It goes everywhere with you because you're going to be experts with it. And then let's see. Oh, networking was so important. Being in contact with other people was one of the things computers provided. Back then we didn't have the internet, but we had modems. AOL was Macintosh only, and I was using Macintoshes, so every one of my students had AOL accounts and got familiar with how to communicate with people anywhere in the world.